Yes.
Paul has been a tweep of mine for longer than I care to admit. We've been connected since the early days of Twitter. And I wanted him to talk about specifically the social media aspect of how you go about combining efforts in social media with your blogging efforts or your book authorship and that type of thing. So I'm going to just let him let it rip because he really knows what he's talking about.
Thank you. Just as a brief intro, I started all of this a couple of years ago, and honestly, I had no idea what I was doing, none. And I didn't know why I was doing it. I just knew that everyone was telling me I needed a blog. The more I heard you need a blog, I decided it might be a good idea to figure out what a blog was. And I mean, that was where I started, literally. And over the course of the last couple of years, I learned how to be a blogger the hard way. And I get asked a lot of questions about how do we do this, how do we approach social media. Also really active on Twitter. My blog and my Twitter identity work hand in hand. Again, and I didn't know anything about Twitter when I started it either. And if I could make a name for myself on the internet, anyone can. And I get asked a lot of questions. I actually teach a class. I have one that is yet to be scheduled in Chicago at the Merchandise Mart coming up over the course of the next couple of months. But I started teaching these seminars in response to all this bad advice I keep running into, where people invent these arbitrary rules and say, you should only have a blog post every other day, or you should only tweet 10 times a day. And it's bull. There are no rules. That's the rule. There are no rules. But there are some really solid guidelines that'll help you be successful. And the overriding one to all of this is to be consistent. To have a consistent voice, to have a consistent schedule, to have consistently good content. It doesn't matter how many times a week you're going to write. What matters is that you get on an editorial schedule and you say, I'm going to write on Monday, on Wednesday, on Friday, and that's my blog. Or I'm going to write every day. Or just make up a schedule and hold yourself to it. Because it becomes a really good tool for discipline as a writer. Because it gives you this outlet that you have to do. And I respond really well to these self-imposed deadlines and rules. And you know, all of my success came from coming back from a vacation 3.5 years ago and deciding that I was going to write a blog post every day for a year just to see what would happen. And I wrote a blog post every day, 7 days a week for 2.5 years. And in the course of that 2.5 years, the universe opened up so wide, it takes my breath away now. I think I put almost 50,000 miles, 50,000 air miles so far this year, and I haven't paid a dime for any of it. People fly me everywhere just to show me what they're up to. It's really incredible, and it's just because I have a following. So, back to that consistency thing. You know, post at the same regular interval. By the time you start blogging, you'll figure out pretty quickly that you need to syndicate a blog, usually through FeedBurner, or you can syndicate it through Facebook. And as you grow a community around yourself, people are going to begin to anticipate the next posts. And if you can build a community around the fact that you post every other morning at 7 o'clock, at 7 o'clock, there's going to be a whole lot of people waiting to read what you have to say. Not only are they going to wait to read what you have to say, they're going to join a conversation with you, you know, in the comment section afterward. Another big one is to to have a consistent voice. You know, decide that you are going to be the voice of your blog, or that you're going to play a character on your blog, or that some voice that's the same voice is going to write it every day. A lot of people are nervous about divulging personal information on a blog. I have some lines drawn that I don't cross. I write about design primarily, and just for a sense of my own safety, I'll never photograph my own home. There's a lot of crazy people out there, and you just draw lines. You know, I know a lot of other bloggers who like to talk about their family lives, but they don't use their siblings' names or their husband's name. They just use initials, or they make up nicknames for their kids. And it's just a way to feel secure, and it's perfectly okay to do that. Just, again, be consistent with it. People don't read blogs for flowery writing. They read blogs for a unique point of view, because what they're reading is a person. They want to bond with a person, and they want your opinion and your expertise. And don't be afraid to ruffle feathers. It's okay to get a little controversial every once in a while. Just be responsible. Another really important part of being a successful blogger is to be a good neighbor. And one of the best ways to learn how to blog is to read other blogs. And read other blogs and comment on them. Because those comments, it's like a karma bank. They pay off in the long run, because people will follow your comment back to your website. And they'll check out what you have to say. And it's a great way to start building a community. Share your contacts and refer them to other bloggers. The keynote this afternoon used a term. What did she call? Cooperation. It's true. The universe is, the internet is gigantic, and there's room for everybody. And you really don't have any competitors. What you have are fellow travelers. And when people who are regular blog readers read blogs, they don't read one over the other. They tend to read a bunch of them in the same niche. And they like to weigh perspectives and see, well, Kelly said this, and then Paul said this, and then Cheryl said that. It's never, I stopped reading Paul because I read Kelly now. So they're not your competitors. They're, you're a network of peers. Another really important one, especially when you're starting out with a blog and you're trying to encourage a community to build around it, every time somebody leaves a comment on your blog, acknowledge it. Write a follow-up comment. Say, thanks for chiming in. I'm glad you're here. It was a really good point. Just be encouraging, be positive, but always be involved. There's my don't follow arbitrary rules again. Make up your own, but stick to them. And no blogger is too big to take the time to answer a question. I was helped by some really big people when I was first starting out, and I feel an obligation to help new people. And so if you don't understand something, or you have questions about how to be a blogger, just shoot an email to somebody who's pretty high profile, and 9 times out of 10 they'll respond to you. And especially now at the beginnings of all of this, there's an incredible camaraderie between bloggers that's really refreshing to see, because it's not something you see in most aspects of your life. So always be willing to lend a hand. When somebody asks for a backlink and they're a legitimate blogger, or they want to be in your blog role, don't be afraid to just pop them on there. No questions asked. I'm extending a hand to a new blogger. Another good way to build a community when you're starting out is to invite in guest bloggers who are writers who who just come in and write on your niche topic or any topic. When I was starting out and I was first starting to get popular, I like to travel and I like to take vacations, and what I used to do is just open it up. I would write a blog post saying, I'm taking off for a week and a half in December and I need people to fill in. So if you're interested, drop me an email. And I would always be overwhelmed by the response. It was always from people who were starting out who wanted a bigger audience. Because when you guest blog, a lot of those people who read you on the famous site are going to follow you back. And you'll attract some of them. You won't attract them all. But you build web traffic incrementally. It doesn't happen overnight. And, probably 8 years ago, if you had a blog and it got real popular, that's when, people had these meteoric rises, and that really doesn't happen anymore. How many blogs are there in the world? 250 million? So it's really, it's that high. And so that blog role is a really important tool. It's a way to connect and build a community as well. Most blogs, if you look at them, they have a list of other blogs, and they're reciprocal links. They're important for search engine optimization, and they're really important for building a community of other bloggers around you. And again, it's always, don't get distracted by traffic numbers or lack thereof. It doesn't matter how many readers you have. It matters how engaged you are with them. Because you're building a community, and you're building your brand at the same time. And so another really important tool in building this community and building a brand around yourself is to tie your blog into at least one more social media platform. And for everybody, this is different. I know right now we're all talking about you need a blog, you need Twitter, you need Facebook. And that's right now on April 30th, 2011. 6 months from now, something else will be around. A year from now, 2 new things will be around. 5 years from now, none of this will mean anything. So, but as always, it's always been be the message, not the medium. And these are just the tools we have in front of us. They're really simple to use. They're time consuming, but they're very simple to use. But don't get so attached to them that you can't pick up and drop everything and pick up and go somewhere else pretty quickly. But tying a blog into a Twitter account, into a Facebook account, that's another rich audience source. And again, that all thrives on degree of engagement, not number of followers. You know, how well known are you to the people you interact with? So those platforms vary from person to person. For me, it's all about Twitter. I came to Twitter a couple of years ago and stared at it for about 3 months because it made no sense. And it was like starting over with a blog. I'm like, what the heck is this? And I don't know, a light went off after about 3 months of staring at it, and it made sense. And I think a lot of it was when people started to interact back. It began to make sense, and as people began to interact back, I noticed that my click-through rate when I would post links to my blog started to go up. And it really drove a significant amount of traffic to me. Right now, Twitter brings me about 30% of my web traffic. And that's just from consistently using Twitter. So Twitter is my favorite out of all these things. And as far as I'm concerned, it's the fastest way to deliver a message. It's incredible how quickly news travels on that platform. And but it only moves quickly if you are a good and loyal Twitter community member. People will not retweet you just because it's there. You need to build up some goodwill in this community that you're building around yourself, and the rewards are pretty amazing. So Twitter is really easily overwhelming. It's this constant stream of updates, 9/10 of which are useless. But for every 1 in 10, there's something really important, something really good there. And another big key to my understanding Twitter was when I learned how to manage it through a tool called Hootsuite. So Saxon and I were haggling about this last night. She likes a different platform. I'm all about Hootsuite. But Hootsuite made Twitter make sense because I could manage everything at a glance. And that's just a screen cap from me, I guess, when I put this together at some point last winter. The home feed is the first column. Second column is my mentions. That's every time somebody mentions my name, it shows up in that mentions column. Third column is direct messages. That's when people send me private messages. And then I have many more screens than this, but I do hashtag searches. And the fourth column here, I'm involved in a project. It's a group blogging project called Let's Blog Off. And it has a hashtag, # Let's Blog Off. And that's kind of important to me right now, so I want to pay attention to when anybody out there is talking about this project. I want to know that they're talking about it because I want to interact with them.